This manifesto, it's like a blueprint for what we should have in society.
It's important that we as pensioners make sure that we clearly say what we need, what sort of a world we need.
And it covers everything. It covers transport, health, pensions, schools, education, social care. It covers everything that you want to live a dignified life.
The manifesto is written by pensioners, for pensioners and all who come after.
I'm a bit, sort of like taken aback and thinking, what, you've got a manifesto, but there's no election coming up. I mean, that's normally what I expect a manifesto to be about, promises that won't be fulfilled normally. What made you think of drawing up a manifesto when there's no immediate election, and also you're not really in a party that is standing for election?
Well, to give you a little bit of background into the Merseyside Pensioners Association, an organisation that's been running for about 30 odd years now. And we're a part of the National Pensioners Convention, which was initially set up by Jack Jones way back in, I can't remember now exactly when it was. But of course, Jack Jones was not only a native of Liverpool, but also the General Secretary of the Transport and General Workers Union. And when he retired, I think Jack felt that the pensioners needed to have some sort of a voice. And so the NPC was actually established. But our organisation has grown and grown since then. And of course, we've had, new members are coming in all the time. And the idea of the manifesto, excuse me, was something that arose from the discussions we had about the Merseyside Pensioners Association and what sort of an organisation we were. And all through the pandemic, we did adopt technology, irrespective of the fact that elderly people or older people were very often told, oh, they're all technophobes and they wouldn't know how to manage things like, managing online meetings and so on. And yet we adopted Zoom very early on at the time of the pandemic so that we could continue to have our meetings. And we managed to do that. And we managed to get speakers, national speakers as well, which was a great, a great boon for us, because it meant that the political discussion could continue to go on, regardless of all the propaganda that was coming out from the, from the government about how we're all in this together and all this sort of thing. But the idea of having a manifesto really arose from the fact that because of our lifelong commitment to trade unionism and socialism, that we needed to ensure that new members or people coming to our meetings or people supporting our organisation knew what we actually stood for. And so the thing to do was to put that into some sort of a tangible form, form, in the form of the manifesto. And the idea of the manifesto, it wasn't so much to be used as a propaganda tool by politicians, but it was there to let people know what our beliefs and our values were. And we would certainly make that available to, for example, independent councillors who wish to stand for election, or for people in working in the trade union movement who are looking for some sort of political solutions or political answers to the questions. And that's what the manifesto is actually all about. Because what we did as trade unionists, and we've all the members of the Merseyside Pensioners Association have had a long history of activity in the labour movement. I mean, I started as a trade unionist at the age of 17, and a few years ago discovered that I was on the Economic League had a blacklist, and I was on the blacklist at 17 because I was trying to organise my fellow student nurses into the National Union of Public Employees. And every single one of our members could have a history like that. We have several comrades in the Merseyside Pensioners Association who were blacklisted and are still blacklisted. And we're very proud of the fact that we've actually got that record. And I certainly wear mine with like a badge of pride, to be honest with you.
I mean, what I found very interesting about the preview video that I watched was the fact that obviously that many people who are pensioners remember or are familiar with a time where we had public ownership of industries and the railways and stuff, and a fully funded, publicly owned, and all the other parts of the nationalised NHS. These things now look like they're kind of exotic. So it's good that people can say it's not an ideal. We had these things, and we should have them. And that seems to be a very important message that you're putting out there.
Well, yes, it is, absolutely, because we were the generation, if you like, that we were brought up, and we only ever knew the welfare states, as it was called at that time. So we only ever knew nationalised industries. We only ever knew council housing, for example. And as our lives, as we got older, we have seen those gains that have been fought for and won by the working class more and more being destroyed or being eroded. And throughout our lives, we continue to fight to try to defend those particular services. Now, our manifesto is not by any means any sort of a revolutionary document, because all we're looking at are the things that we actually enjoyed when we were growing up as young people. And we're now looking at a situation where we see our grandchildren and our children, and in some instances our great-grandchildren, are being denied very basic rights, such as the right to a roof over your head. And of course, you know that in Liverpool, council housing has been a major issue, and we did take a lead in actually standing up to Thatcher when she was imposing her sale of council houses throughout the country, that it was our comrades and Liverpool City Council at that time in the 1980s that actually refused to implement those Tory policies. And that's what we've been fighting for and asking for our councillors now, our local councillors, to stand up and fight and do not accept, having imposing Tory party policies on people. You were elected on a certain programme, and you should be defending that programme, and you shouldn't be just rolling over to the Tories all the time.
So, I mean, can I just come in? I mean, just thinking about it, it's really bizarre that we're in a time where in the past we had a better standard of life than the present. I don't remember that being the case ever before in history. Do you? I mean, it's just, it was always progress was being made all the time, and now it's like we could have it as it was, not how it could be. There's no sort of fantasy about it. It's like you know that happens, and that you can have council housing, you can have public ownership. It's just a strange situation we're in, with both the parties are not willing to fight for what we've already had.
Well, that's one of the things, of course, the most disappointing thing is with regard to the Labour Party. Many of our members were Labour Party members. Many of them have been expelled from the Labour Party on all sorts of spurious reasons. But the demand for council housing and the idea of the concept of council houses doesn't seem to have been grasped by Labour Party politicians, or certainly Labour councillors. And I think too many Labour or Labour councils have been sucked into this propaganda about affordable housing, housing to rent to buy, housing to buy to rent, and all this sort of thing. I mean, we had all these issues in Liverpool quite recently when Joe Anderson was the mayor, and Joe Anderson came to our Community Unite branch and declared that he was going to build 10,000 council houses. And we said to him, well, what will they be council houses? We want an assurance they will be council houses, because our concept of council housing is that it's the council who build the houses. Not only do they build the houses, but they maintain the houses, and that they ensure that there is a direct labour force within the council, employed by the council, to actually do that particular task. Because I can remember the council houses and the struggle that we had in the 1980s over the issue of council housing was not only did it actually provide secure homes for individuals who were never going to be in a position to buy their own homes. Was at that time, there was a large proportion of the country that actually did live in council houses, because after the war, when there was devastation throughout the country, and Liverpool was one of the cities that was absolutely devastated, and there was a need for homes, there was a need for housing, and of course, as a result of the recommendations from the Beveridge report, was that the only agency, if you like, that was able to actually rebuild the country, the only agency that could actually get the money together, was the state. So the council housing had to be an important, if you like, first task of the state. And then they looked at all the things like unemployment, they looked at housing, they looked at health, they looked at education. So all those reforms of that 1945 Labour government were attempted to actually deal with those fundamental rights, fundamental life, if you like, in Britain. Because how can anybody argue with the right to free healthcare?
Yeah,
very
that's the thing. We've run out of that. We've got none of these rights. They've all been taken away pretty much. And you're reminding everyone with this manifesto of what those rights are and how they can exist, and they have existed. But I've got to move on. But thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I do hope, and if comrades want copies of our manifesto, all they need to do is to contact Crispin, and he'll put you in touch with us. Is that okay?
All right. Thank you for giving me some more admin. Cheers.
You're welcome.
Cheers.